But you're so good at managing NPLs now. Why didn't you organize yourself before? Because the market was there already. Yes, this is true, but we had to go through an incredible financial crisis which affected the banks of our countries, and the banks support all the economy and the companies. And then there also was a series of wrong decisions made. The question said, yes, there are banks that buy and others that sell, but the workout is the same for all of them. The workout is an alternative to a sale, and we are an alternative to a competitor for Banca Ifis in this case. And then we have also organized ourselves. We have managers that interact with the funds and who contributed to filling the ignorance gap. Sometimes the collateral is not well known, the residential collateral, not for each individual file, but in terms of a complete database that enable us to follow a common strategy in these activities. Probably we should have been doing this before now, but like our colleague said a few years ago, the CEO didn't even speak to his collaborators. But now the idea is let us avoid the judicial flow, and let's see if we can find the ideal buyer for these assets. It's a market that has changed, and reforms too in the past 2 years, 2 years and a half. If I may, Andrea, I haven't heard Dr. Boss's answer. Dr. Boss's answer. Well, how you should do this? Well, the point is it depends whether you have to start from scratch or if you already have a structure that had a workout unit before. In the good years, the workout part of our work was not in the hands of the best resources, the best human resources. The collection inside banks. And I think we can say this because the best minds would go to London in asset management. Now the trend has changed. And it is right, and this is right, because it is more profitable to do workout recovery than asset management. So it is easier to start from scratch, and this is what we did, or almost at zero, let's say, because our company was at Toscana Finanza, which we acquired in 2011, and from there we grew, and we focused on the most important things. Data are fundamental. They are the main pillar. Whenever you have hundreds of thousands or millions, we have 1.5 million positions that we manage in our books. This means you have to use all your intelligence to choose the best collection processes, and you have to keep reading your data. You have to enrich your database. You have to add to it, invest in it, and make efforts to find the best data in order to have the best collections. This is a process. And the ECB has underlined the information asymmetry and the gap between buyers and purchasers. Is the market becoming more efficient because of the quality of the data? Is it the quality of the portfolios that is increasing? From the bank's point of view, in our direct experience, much has been done this year in terms of improving data quality. And there are initiatives at European level in order to create a common database using a common format. And harmonization, therefore, yes, the European Data Warehouse, as it is called, it is just in an initial stage, but it may be important. Some say that there is a lack of servicing capacity in Italy. The NPS, the suggestion is to break them down into smaller packages. Well, such a large transaction cannot just be done by one subject. You need many players here. With the rating objectives, that is an objective for the bank and for all of us. We have limits, defined limits, and creating a collection structure would be too difficult with too many players. This would make the analysis by rating companies too complicated. We saw a slide some time ago. There is a question from the audience. In the crisis period, the NPL inflow is consistently higher than the outflow. The question is this: is the banking system sustainable in this situation? No, it is not sustainable, but the good news is that this ratio has already been reversed. This year's numbers show 40 or 50% decrease of the NPL inflow. The idea is to have a workout capacity better than the inflow. And finally, this year, this is what we are seeing. There is a very strong reduction, which means that there has been a sort of cleaning action in the past years, and also it is ascribable to a market that is bringing in just some marginal situations. What about the unlikely to pay? Are these the next threat? In describing how to organize the workout units, we have forgotten to say that in modern banks, we always separated the unlikely to pay from the bad loans. In the past, the provisions were made, and in theory, these bad loans should have been sold. All this has been destructured. The non-performing loans part doesn't even have the clients. So there is a bankruptcy procedure. there is not a client. In the case of the unlikely to pay, at least in Italy, the situation is completely different. I don't know whether it is the same in the rest of Europe. The regulator tends to say that they are the same thing, but it is not true. In the unlikely to pay, there are all the restructurings that have been carried out on the basis of law 187 and 182. They are waiting for the interest on the capital. Why should I consider this to be a failure? In the case of other markets, know that these two worlds are regarded as one, but we are managing them in different ways. But it seems that the banks. The bank should not become services, because the services have to put in place a series of actions. Just an additional reflection on NPLs. Not according to the logic of bad debts and the idea of selling or buying. It is clear that the idea of avoiding bad debts is wrong. You have to consider the whole chain of debt from its granting. Otherwise, you cannot see any increase of the asset quality. The Inbonis portfolio that remains is very, very different from the type of portfolios we had a couple of years ago. First of all, because there is the emptying effect. If you eliminated the bad part, what remains is should be the best one. And then, because you give priority to the companies that have the best rating. In Italy, we concentrate on the best classes, and the credit assigned to the risky classes is lower. It is clear that the banks have to try and recover in terms of LGD. Having said this, and we go back to the beginning of our discussion, assignments are unavoidable.